I'm glad to have you here. Follow my story until the end and comment the city you're watching from, because what I'm about to tell you will change how you think about protecting the people you love. I didn't panic when I found the envelope taped under my husband's old truck dashboard. My hands were steady as I peeled it away, feeling the weight of what had to be cash. Maybe drugs. I knew exactly who put it there. My son, Kyle. The November wind rattled the truck windows in my driveway in Oakville, Ontario. I sat there for a moment holding that envelope and made a decision that would destroy my family to save it. I carefully removed it, walked across the gravel to where Kyle's Honda Civic was parked and placed it in his glove compartment. Then I went inside, poured myself a cup of coffee, and waited. 23 minutes later, I heard the sirens. But let me back up, because this story doesn't start with sirens. It starts 64 years ago when I was born Angela Marie Thompson in a small town outside Hamilton. It starts with a girl who became a nurse because she wanted to help people. It starts with love, family, and the kind of trust that takes decades to build and seconds to shatter. My name is Angela Mitchell, and I'm 64 years old. I spent 40 years as a registered nurse at Hamilton General Hospital before I retired 3 years ago. Most of those years were in the emergency department, where I learned to stay calm when everything around me was chaos. Where I learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is hurt them a little now, to save them from something worse later. That's what I told myself when I moved that envelope. I met my husband Robert in 1982 at a church picnic. He was 25, I was 23, and he made me laugh so hard I snorted lemonade out my nose. Robert was a plumber, a good, honest man who believed in hard work and family above everything else. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony at St. James Catholic Church, the same church where we'd baptized both our children and where I'd say goodbye to him 4 years ago. We had 2 kids. Kyle came first in 1985, red-faced and screaming like he was angry at the world. Jennifer followed in 1987, quiet and observant, even as a newborn. We raised them in a modest 3-bedroom bungalow on Oak Street, the kind of house with a small front yard where the kids could play, and a garage where Robert kept his tools organized with the same precision he brought to every job. Money was always tight. Robert's plumbing business did okay, but we weren't buying designer clothes or taking fancy vacations. We were the family who clipped coupons, who bought generic brands, who saved every penny we could because we had a dream. We wanted our kids to go to college without drowning in student debt. That was our legacy to them. That was what Robert and I worked ourselves to exhaustion for. Kyle graduated from McMaster University with a degree in business administration. Jennifer became a teacher. We were so proud we could barely stand it. The day Kyle walked across that stage, Robert squeezed my hand so tight it hurt, and when I looked at him, tears were streaming down his face. "We did it, Angel," he whispered. "We really did it." But that's not the part of the story you came here for, is it? You came for the part where everything falls apart. Robert bought the red Ford F-150 in 2015. It was used, already had 60,000 miles on it, but it was his pride and joy. He'd wash it every Saturday morning, even in winter, standing out there in the driveway with a bucket and sponge, while I watched from the kitchen window, shaking my head and smiling. "This truck will outlive me, Angel," he told me once. "Take care of it when I'm gone." I laughed it off at the time. Robert was only 56, healthy as a horse, or so we thought. The diagnosis came in January 2019. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctor's mouth kept moving, saying words like treatment options and quality of life, but all I could hear was the blood rushing in my ears. Robert sat next to me holding my hand, and I remember thinking how strange it was that his hand was still warm when everything else in that room felt so cold. He fought for 18 months. Chemo, radiation, experimental treatments we paid for by emptying our retirement savings. Jennifer had to take time off from teaching to help me care for him. Kyle visited when he could, but he was busy with his new job in real estate, his new wife Sarah, their baby daughter Emma. "I'm sorry, Mom," Kyle would say on the phone. "Work is crazy right now, but I'll come by this weekend, I promise." Sometimes he did, sometimes he didn't. Robert died on July 23, 2020, at home in our bed with me holding his hand. His last coherent words were, "Take care of Kyle. He's not as strong as he looks." At the time, I thought Robert meant emotionally. Now I wonder if he saw something I missed. After the funeral, I kept the truck. Everyone told me to sell it. I didn't need a vehicle that big. It was expensive to maintain. I should get something more practical. But every time I looked at it sitting in the driveway, I saw Robert standing there with his bucket and sponge grinning at me through the kitchen window. So I kept it. I'd drive it to the grocery store once a week, maybe to church on Sundays. It was too big for me, really. The radio was still set to Robert's favorite classic rock station. Sometimes I'd find myself sitting in the driver's seat, not going anywhere, just sitting there remembering. I didn't know Kyle was remembering it too, but for very different reasons. It started 3 months ago in August 2024. I was in my kitchen making lunch tuna salad sandwich, same thing I'd eaten every Thursday for the past 40 years when my phone rang. Kyle's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, Mom," he said, and I could hear traffic noise in the background. "I've got a favor to ask." "Of course, honey. What do you need?" "My car's in the shop. Something with the transmission. Think I could borrow Dad's truck for the weekend." I didn't hesitate. "Sure, sweetheart. Keys are in the visor like always." "You're the best mom. I'll bring it back Sunday night." Kyle had borrowed the truck before. When he and Sarah needed to pick up furniture from IKEA. When he had to haul lumber for a deck he was building. It was Dad's truck, sure, but Kyle was Dad's son. It felt right to let him use it. He picked it up Saturday morning. Gave me a quick hug, said Sarah sent her love promised to fill the tank before returning it. I watched him drive away and went back to my crossword puzzle. Sunday night he brought it back around 9 o'clock. I was watching a detective show on TV when I heard the truck pull into the driveway. I got up to meet him at the door, but something made me pause at the living room window. Kyle sat in the driver's seat for almost 5 minutes, not moving. His phone was pressed to his ear, and even from inside the house, I could see the tension in his shoulders. He kept looking around, checking his mirrors like he expected someone to pull up behind him. When he finally came to the door, his shirt was damp with sweat, despite the cool August evening. "Thanks, Mom," he said, handing me the keys. His hands were shaking. "You're a lifesaver." "Everything okay, honey? You look stressed." His jaw tightened. "Yeah, Mom. Everything's fine. Why wouldn't it be?" The edge in his voice made me flinch. "I just meant, work's been stressful, that's all." He pulled me into a quick hug, but it felt stiff, forced. "I should get home. Sarah's waiting." I watched him drive away in his Honda Civic, and something cold settled in my stomach. Something was wrong. Mothers know these things. We know when our children are lying, even when they've gotten good at it. The next morning, I went out to the truck to drive to my Monday morning coffee date with my friend Patricia. I was about to start the engine when I noticed something wedged between the driver's seat and the center console. A small plastic bag, empty but not clean. I pulled it out and held it up to the light. There was residue inside, white powder clinging to the plastic. And that smell, chemical, distinctive. I'd smelled it 1,000 times in the ED on patients who came in high or overdosing or worse. Drug residue. My hands started shaking. I told myself it could have been from anyone. Maybe someone at Robert's old plumbing company had borrowed the truck years ago and I'd never noticed. Maybe it had been there for months. Maybe it wasn't what I thought it was. But deep down in that place where nurses learn to trust their instincts, I knew. I sat there in that truck for 20 minutes holding that bag, my heart hammering against my ribs. Finally, I put it in my purse, went back inside, and canceled my coffee date with Patricia. I didn't sleep that night. 6 weeks passed. I tried to convince myself I was being paranoid. Kyle was a good kid, a good man now, I reminded myself. He had a wife, a daughter, a respectable job. Sure, he'd been stressed lately, but who wasn't? The real estate market was tough. He had bills to pay. He was probably just dealing with normal adult pressures. But I couldn't stop thinking about that plastic bag, about the way Kyle had looked in the truck that night, hunched over his phone, checking his mirrors. Then, on a Tuesday evening in late September, he called again. "Hey, Mom, I hate to ask, but my car's acting up again. Can I use the truck tomorrow morning just for a quick errand?" "Of course," I said automatically. "Then, Kyle, maybe you should look into getting a new car if yours is giving you this much trouble." "Yeah, you're probably right. I'll look into it, thanks, Mom. I'll grab the truck around 7 tomorrow, okay?" Keys in the visor. This time I was ready. When Kyle picked up the truck Wednesday morning, I watched from behind the living room curtains. He looked around before getting in, checking to see if I was watching. Something about that furtive glance made my chest tighten. He returned it that afternoon around 2. I made sure to be visible in the kitchen window washing dishes so he'd think I wasn't paying attention. But I was watching. God, I was watching. He sat in the truck again after parking. 3, 4, 5 minutes. On his phone, gesturing as he talked, his free hand gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. When he finally came inside, his shirt was soaked through despite the October chill. "Thanks, Dad." He caught himself. "Mom. Thanks, Mom. Really appreciate it." "Anytime, son. That's what family's for." He hugged me, and I felt him trembling. My boy, my 39-year-old son, trembling in my arms like he used to when he was small and scared of thunderstorms. "Kyle," I said softly, "are you sure everything's okay? You know you can talk to me about anything." "I know, Mom." He pulled back, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Everything's fine. I should get going." After he left, I grabbed my winter coat and a flashlight. My heart was pounding as I walked out to the truck. The sun was already setting, casting long shadows across the driveway. I checked everywhere. Under the seats, nothing. In the glove box, nothing. Behind the sun visors, nothing. I was about to give up, to tell myself I was being a paranoid old woman, when I noticed the carpet mat by the pedals was slightly lifted at one corner. I pulled it back. There, secured with duct tape to the floor beneath the mat, was a cell phone. Not a smartphone. One of those cheap flip phones you can buy at any convenience store. A burner phone. My hands shook as I peeled it away from the duct tape. I opened it, half expecting it to be locked, but it wasn't. The screen lit up, showing a text message conversation. My blood turned to ice. The messages were in code, but not a complicated one. I'd seen enough in the ED to recognize what I was looking at. Numbers, addresses in Toronto, times, quantities. Toronto J. Next run Thursday. Same drop points. 5K advance. K. Roger, using old lady shield again. Toronto J. Your mom's truck is perfect. Nobody checks a nurse. I sat there in the driver's seat, staring at those words on the tiny screen. Nobody checks a nurse. My profession, my 40 years of service, reduced to cover for my son's drug dealing. I scrolled further back. There were dozens of messages over the past 3 months. Different names: Toronto J. Blue, Lake Scarborough Mike, all using the same kind of code. Addresses I recognized from my years working in Hamilton. Drop points, payment schedules, distribution networks. One message made my stomach turn. Blue Lake old lady shield gets 5 stars. Use her again next week. She suspect anything. K. No. She trusts me. Never questions. I thought I might vomit right there in the truck. The boy I'd taught to ride a bike. The kid who'd cried when we had to put down our dog Max when Kyle was 12. The young man I'd walked across the stage at his university graduation, so proud I thought my heart would burst. That boy, that kid, that young man was using me, using Robert's truck, using my good name, using the fact that I was a harmless old nurse to transport drugs. I sat in that truck for over an hour as the last light faded from the sky and the November wind picked up, reading through every message. By the time I finished, I had a clear picture of what Kyle was involved in. This wasn't some small-time operation. This wasn't him carrying a little marijuana for a friend. This was organized, systematic drug trafficking. Opioids, from what I could tell from the coded quantities. Maybe fentanyl. People were dying from this stuff. I'd seen them in the ED, blue-lipped, not-breathing families screaming as we tried to revive them. I'd held more than one mother while she sobbed over her dead child overdosed on poison sold by people like my son. I finally put the phone back exactly where I'd found it, smoothed the carpet mat down, and walked back inside on legs that barely held me up. I poured myself a glass of water with trembling hands and sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Robert and I had helped Kyle with his homework, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays and all the small victories of raising a family. Catherine's voice echoed in my head. Not Catherine Robert. Robert had once told me when the kids were teenagers and had gotten caught sneaking out, trust is earned twice, Angel. Once when they're honest with you, and again when they fix their mistakes after they lie. Kyle hadn't been honest with me, but I was going to give him a chance to fix this. I picked up my phone and called him. "Hey, Mom," he answered, sounding cautious. "Everything okay?" "Kyle, I need to talk to you about something important. Can you come by the house this weekend?" Long pause. "Is everything all right? Are you sick?" "I'm fine, honey. We need to talk. Saturday morning." "Sure, Mom. Sure, I'll be there." After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my kitchen, listening to the old house settle around me. Robert's absence had never felt more complete. What would he have done? How would he have handled this? "Take care of Kyle," he'd said with his last breath. "He's not as strong as he looks." "I'm trying, Robert," I whispered to the empty room. "God help me, I'm trying." Saturday morning dawned cold and gray. I was up before sunrise, unable to sleep, making coffee with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. I'd barely eaten in 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those messages. Nobody checks a nurse. She trusts me, never questions. Kyle arrived at 9:30. Through the kitchen window, I watched him sit in his car for a minute before getting out, staring at the house like he was steeling himself for something. He'd told Sarah he was dropping Emma off at her parents' house in Burlington before coming here. I'd heard it all when I called Sarah yesterday to just check in. "Angela, so good to hear from you," Sarah had said, sounding tired. "Kyle's actually taking Emma to my parents tomorrow morning. First time he's offered to do that in months. How are you?" First time in months. Because he knew he was coming here. Because he knew this might not be pleasant. The doorbell rang. I took a deep breath, smoothed my sweater, and opened the door. Kyle stood on the porch, hands in his jacket pockets, that same forced smile on his face. "Hey, Mom." He leaned in to kiss my cheek. "Come in, sweetheart. Coffee." "Sure." We went to the kitchen, the same kitchen where Robert used to make pancakes every Sunday morning, where we'd celebrated Christmases and birthdays and graduations. The morning light coming through the window seemed too bright, too harsh. I poured us both coffee. My hands were steadier now. Years of nursing had taught me how to function in crisis, how to stay calm even when everything inside you was screaming. "So," Kyle said, sitting at the table, wrapping his hands around the mug. "What did you want to talk about?" I sat across from him. For a moment I just looked at my son, really looked at him. When had he lost so much weight? When had those dark circles appeared under his eyes? How had I missed the signs? "I found something in the truck," I said quietly. His face went pale, actually drained of color like someone had pulled a plug. "What do you mean?" I reached into my cardigan pocket and pulled out the burner phone. I'd taken it the night before, unable to leave it in the truck any longer. I slid it across the table. Kyle's hand shot out like he was going to grab it, then stopped midair. He looked from the phone to me, then back to the phone. When his eyes finally met mine again, they weren't the eyes of my son. They were the eyes of a stranger, calculating, weighing options, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was guessing. "Dad?" He started, then caught himself. "Mom, I can explain." Then explain. The word came out harder than I intended. All the fear and betrayal and heartbreak of the past few days compressed into those 2 syllables. Kyle took a breath. "I got involved with some people in Toronto." "What people?" "Just people. Business contacts." He was looking everywhere except at me. "I made some investments that went bad. Real estate deals. I owed money." "How much money?" "20,000. Kyle. "Okay, 30. Maybe 30. Kyle. "I don't know exactly, Mom." His voice rose, then he caught himself, lowered it. "The point is, I owed money to people you don't want to owe money to. They offered me a way to pay it back." "By transporting drugs." "I didn't know what it was at first, I swear. They just said I needed to make some deliveries. Pick up packages, drop them off. Easy money. And I thought just a couple runs, just enough to clear the debt, and then I'd be done." Every word was a lie. I could see it in the way he wouldn't meet my eyes and the way his story kept shifting. First it was investments, then it was real estate deals. First it was 20,000, then 30, then I don't know exactly. "And you used my truck," I said, my voice flat. "Robert's truck. You used it to transport drugs." "Mom, you made me an accomplice, Kyle. If the police had pulled you over, that's my truck. My name on the registration. I could have lost everything. My pension, my reputation. I could have gone to jail." "I know." His voice was small now. "I know, Mom. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking clearly. The debt, the pressure, I panicked." "And the messages," I leaned forward. "The ones where you told them she trusts me, never questions. Where you laughed about using your nurse mother as a shield." His face crumpled. "I didn't mean it like that." "Then how did you mean it, Kyle? Explain to me how reducing your mother, your dead father's widow, to a shield for your drug dealing wasn't exactly what it sounds like." Tears started rolling down his face. "I'm sorry. God, Mom, I'm so sorry. And Emma, what about your daughter? What happens to her when this catches up to you?" "Because it will, Kyle. You know it will." These people you're involved with, they don't offer retirement plans." "I know." He was sobbing now, my 39-year-old son crying like he was 7 years old again and had broken something valuable. "I've messed everything up. I don't know how to fix it." Part of me wanted to go to him. Every instinct I had as a mother wanted to pull him into my arms and tell him we'd figure it out together, that everything would be okay. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the memory of those messages. Maybe it was the image of all those families in the ED destroyed by the drugs people like Kyle distributed. Maybe it was the thought of little Emma growing up visiting her father in prison. Or worse. "You need to stop," I said, my voice steady despite the tears burning in my eyes. "Today, right now, whatever you're involved in, you walk away." "I can't, Mom." His voice was barely a whisper. "These aren't the kind of people you just walk away from. Then we go to the police. We tell them everything. We cooperate. We get you protection." His face changed. The fear vanished, replaced by something cold and hard that made him look like a stranger. "I'm not going to prison." "Son, if you keep doing this, prison is the best-case scenario." He stood up abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I need to go." "Kyle, wait!" But he was already heading for the door. I heard it open, heard his footsteps on the porch, heard his car start. I sat there at the kitchen table, staring at the burner phone, listening to him drive away. And I knew with the same certainty I'd felt in the ED when a patient was about to crash that my son wasn't going to stop. He was going to keep using the truck, keep putting me at risk, keep dragging our family deeper into whatever darkness he'd found. That night I made a decision. If Kyle wouldn't protect himself, I'd have to do it for him. I'd have to protect him in a way that might make him hate me, that might destroy our relationship, that might break both our hearts. But it was the only way to save his life. That night I didn't sleep. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea that went cold hours ago, staring at Kyle's burner phone. The clock on the microwave read 3:47 a.m. I kept replaying our conversation, the way his face had hardened when I mentioned the police, the coldness in his eyes when he said, "I'm not going to prison." That wasn't my son. That was someone I didn't recognize. But he was still my son. And I was still his mother. I thought about Robert. What would he do, Robert, with his simple, straightforward way of looking at the world? Right was right. Wrong was wrong. Family came first, but not at the cost of your soul. I could almost hear his voice. "You have to stop him, Angel, but you have to do it smart." Smart. Not easy. Not comfortable. Smart. By the time the sun came up, I knew what I had to do. It wasn't a plan yet, not really. Just the seed of an idea, terrible and necessary in equal measure. I pushed it to the back of my mind. First, I needed more information. I needed to see what Kyle was really doing with that truck. 3 days later, on a Thursday morning, Kyle called. "Hey, Mom." His voice was carefully casual. "I know I just borrowed it, but any chance I could use the truck today? I need to pick up some building materials. My car's too small." My heart started pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "Of course, sweetheart. Keys are in the visor." "Thanks, Mom. You're the best. I'll have it back by noon." After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen, hands shaking. This was it. This was my chance to see what he was really doing. I grabbed my purse and Robert's old digital camera. He'd used it for taking photos of plumbing jobs for insurance purposes. Then I went to the closet and pulled out my navy blue jacket, the plain one that made me look like every other senior citizen in Ontario. Nobody notices old ladies. Kyle had taught me that. Kyle arrived at 7:15. I watched from behind the living room curtain as he pulled up in his Honda Civic, got out, checked his phone, looked around. Then he walked to the truck, opened the door, and drove away. I gave him a 2-minute head start. Then I grabbed my keys and went to the garage where my old Toyota Corolla sat. Robert had bought it for me in 2010, and it still ran perfectly. Boring, reliable, invisible, perfect. My hands were slippery on the steering wheel as I backed out of the driveway. I'd never followed anyone before. What if he saw me? What if I lost him? What if— Stop it, Angela. You worked 40 years in the ED. You can do this. I caught up to him at the second traffic light. Stayed 3 cars back like I'd seen in movies. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought I might pass out. Kyle didn't go to any building supply store. He drove straight onto the QEW heading toward Toronto, and I followed. 20 minutes later, Kyle took the exit for Burlington and pulled into a Tim Hortons parking lot. Not the one near the restaurant entrance, the far corner near the dumpsters where the security cameras wouldn't reach. I parked on the street about 100 yards away and picked up Robert's camera. Kyle sat in the truck for 15 minutes checking his phone constantly. Then a black Mercedes pulled up beside him. Even from this distance, I could see it was expensive. Brand new with custom rims that probably cost more than my monthly pension. A man got out. Mid-30s, I'd guess, wearing a suit that looked tailored. He glanced around the parking lot, my breath caught, but he didn't look my direction, then opened the passenger door of the truck and climbed in beside Kyle. I raised the camera and started taking pictures. My hands were steadier now. This was like triage, assess, document, act. I could do this. They talked for maybe 5 minutes. I couldn't see Kyle's face, but I could see his body language. Tense, defensive. The man in the suit did most of the talking, gesturing with his hands. Then the man got out. He was carrying a large shopping bag, the reusable kind from grocery stores, bulging with something heavy. He put it in his Mercedes, looked around one more time, and drove away. I got his license plate, got photos of his face, got the make and model of his car. Kyle sat in the truck for another minute, then pulled out his phone and typed something, probably letting them know the first drop was complete. Then he drove to the next location. Over the next 3 hours, I followed Kyle to 2 more locations. Each time, the pattern was the same. The second drop was at a Starbucks parking lot in Hamilton. A woman this time maybe 40 driving a gray Lexus. Designer sunglasses. Expensive handbag. She looked like someone you'd see at a charity fundraiser not picking up drugs. The third drop was in an industrial area near the harbor. This one scared me. The man who met Kyle was younger, maybe 25, with tattoos covering both arms, and a look in his eyes that made my nursing instincts scream danger. He didn't get in the truck, just walked up to Kyle's window, took the bag Kyle handed him, and walked away without a word. Each time I took photos, license plates, faces, locations, times. By the time Kyle headed back toward Oakville, I had 43 photos on Robert's camera and a sick feeling in my stomach that wouldn't go away. This wasn't some small-time operation. This was organized, professional. Kyle wasn't just making a couple of runs to pay off a debt. He was part of a distribution network. I got home 10 minutes before Kyle returned the truck. My legs were shaking so badly I could barely walk from the garage to the house. I made it inside, locked the door, and stood there leaning against it, trying to catch my breath. When Kyle knocked, I forced myself to walk calmly to open it. "Hey, Mom." He handed me the keys, smiling. "Thanks again. You really helped me out." "Anytime, honey. Did you get your building materials?" "Yeah, all set." The lie came so easily to him now. "I should get going. Sarah's making dinner. Give her my love, and kiss Emma for me." "Will do." I watched him drive away, still smiling, still lying, still my son. I didn't sleep again that night. I sat at my kitchen table with the photos spread out in front of me, trying to decide what to do. Option 1, go to the police right now. Show them everything. Let them handle it. But what would happen? Kyle would be arrested. He'd go to prison for years, maybe decades. Emma would grow up without a father. Sarah would be left alone to raise her daughter and explain why Daddy was in jail. And the people Kyle was working for, the man in the Mercedes, the woman in the Lexus, whoever was above them, they wouldn't take kindly to one of their distributors getting arrested. Even if Kyle went into witness protection, what about Sarah? What about Emma? Option 2, confront Kyle again. Show him these photos. Force him to see how deep he was in. But I'd already tried that. He'd walked out. Told me he wasn't going to prison. Made it clear he had no intention of stopping. Option 3, do nothing. Pretend I didn't know. Let Kyle continue until what? Until he got caught. Until he got killed. Until Emma lost her father anyway, but in a way that was even worse. I put my head in my hands and started to cry. Real ugly sobs that shook my whole body. The kind of crying I hadn't done since Robert's funeral. "What do I do?" I whispered to the empty kitchen. "Robert, what do I do?" The house was silent. The clock ticked. The refrigerator hummed. No answers came. But slowly, piece by piece, a plan started forming in my mind. Terrible. Necessary. The only way I could see to protect Kyle from himself while keeping the rest of us safe. I would need to be brave. I would need to be smart. And I would need to do something that would make my son hate me possibly forever. But if it saved his life, I could live with that. 2 days later, on a Saturday afternoon, I was folding laundry when my phone rang. Sarah's name appeared on the screen. Angela? Her voice was strained. Do you have a minute to talk? Of course, honey. What's wrong? It's Kyle. A pause. He's been… I don't know how to describe it. Different. Distant. He disappears for hours and won't tell me where he's been. When I ask him questions, he gets defensive. Angry, even. My hands stilled on the towel I was folding. How long has this been going on? Months, maybe? But it's gotten worse lately. I heard her take a shaky breath. Angela, I found something. Cash. A lot of cash. Hidden in our garage behind some old paint cans. $23,000 in $100 bills. The blood drained from my face. Did you ask him about it? I tried. He said it was from a big real estate commission. But Angela, I called his office. They said he hasn't closed a deal that size in over a year. Oh, Sarah. I think… Her voice broke. I think he might be having an affair, or gambling, or something. I don't know what to think anymore. He won't talk to me. He barely looks at me. I closed my eyes. Sarah thought her husband was cheating on her. She had no idea the truth was so much worse. Can we meet? Sarah asked. Tomorrow maybe I just need someone to talk to. Someone who knows Kyle. Someone who might understand what's going on. Of course. Come by tomorrow afternoon. Emma can play in the backyard. After we hung up, I sat down heavily on the couch. This was worse than I thought. Kyle wasn't just dealing drugs. He was lying to his wife, hiding money, putting their entire family at risk, and Sarah was starting to figure out something was wrong. Sunday afternoon, Sarah arrived with Emma. My granddaughter burst through the door like sunshine, all 7 years of energy and joy. Grandma, guess what? I lost my first tooth. I scooped her up, breathing in that little girl's smell of strawberry shampoo and playground dirt. Let me see. She showed me the gap in her smile, proud as could be. The tooth fairy came and everything, Sarah said, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. Emma, honey, why don't you go play in the backyard? Grandma put out your sandbox toys. Okay. Emma ran off, leaving Sarah and me alone in the kitchen. I made tea. Sarah sat at the table, twisting her wedding ring around and around on her finger. A nervous habit I'd noticed developing over the past few months. Talk to me, I said gently, sitting across from her. I don't know where to start. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. He's not the man I married, Angela. Kyle used to tell me everything. We were partners. Now he's a stranger. Tell me about the money you found. $23,000, just sitting there in a duffel bag behind the paint. When I asked him about it, he got angry, said I was invading his privacy, that it was from work and I needed to trust him. She wiped her eyes. But I called his office, Angela. He hasn't had a commission that size in months. I reached across the table and took her hand. Sarah, I need to tell you something, but you have to promise me you'll stay calm, for Emma's sake. Her face went pale. What is it? Kyle's not having an affair, and he's not gambling. I took a deep breath. He's dealing drugs. The words hung in the air between us like smoke. What? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. I told her. About the plastic bag I'd found. The burner phone. The messages. Following Kyle to his drops. All of it. By the time I finished, Sarah was crying silent tears, her hand pressed over her mouth. How long have you known? She finally asked. A few weeks, since I found the phone. And you didn't tell me. I was trying to figure out how to handle it. I confronted Kyle. He refused to stop. Sarah stood up abruptly, pacing the kitchen. Oh my God, Angela. If he's caught, if he's arrested, I could lose my pharmacy license. They do background checks on family members. If Kyle's convicted of drug trafficking, I could lose everything. I hadn't thought of that. Sarah. And Emma. She turned to face me, anguish in every line of her face. What happens to Emma? How do I explain to my daughter that her father is in prison? How does she go to school? How does she live a normal life? I know. That's why I'm trying to… There's something else. Sarah's voice dropped. Someone from my pharmacy has been contacting Kyle. I saw texts on his phone last week. Someone named Blue asking about our inventory systems, about how we track controlled substances. My blood ran cold. What yo? I think she could barely get the words out. I think Kyle might be planning to steal from my pharmacy, to use me to get drugs. I stood up, went to her, pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against me, sobbing. He wouldn't do that, I said. but even as the words left my mouth, I knew they weren't true. The Kyle I'd raised wouldn't. But this Kyle, this stranger who used his mother as a shield and lied to his wife, I didn't know what he was capable of anymore. "What do I do?" Sarah whispered against my shoulder. "Angela, what do I do?" "You take Emma and you go to your parents' house." She pulled back. "What, tonight? Tell Kyle you need a break, that you need time to think. Take Emma and stay with your parents in Burlington." "I can't just leave him." "Sarah, listen to me." I held her shoulders, made her look at me. "I'm going to handle this. I'm going to stop Kyle before this goes any further. But I need to know you and Emma are safe first. Can you do that for me?" She stared at me for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Through the kitchen window, I could see Emma in the sandbox making castles completely innocent of the storm about to break over her family. "I'll do it," Sarah whispered. "Tonight." After Sarah left with Emma, I sat alone in my kitchen as the afternoon shadows grew long. The house felt emptier than usual. Or maybe I just felt more alone. I thought about Father Tom O'Brien at St. James Church. Robert and I had known him for years. He'd baptized both our children, married Kyle and Sarah, presided at Robert's funeral. I needed guidance. Not legal advice, spiritual guidance. Because what I was about to do would haunt me for the rest of my life. I drove to St. James just as evening mass was ending. Father Tom was at the back of the church, shaking hands with parishioners as they left. When he saw me, his weathered face broke into a smile. "Angela, what a pleasant surprise. How are you?" "I was wondering if you had a few minutes to talk, Father." His smile faded. "Of course. Come to my office." We sat in his small, book-lined office. I didn't tell him everything I couldn't, but I told him enough. "Someone I love is destroying themselves," I said. "They're making choices that will ruin their life, hurt their family, possibly get them killed. I've tried talking to them. They won't listen. I have the power to stop them, but it would mean doing something that might make them hate me. That might break our relationship forever." Father Tom was quiet for a long moment, his fingers steepled under his chin. "Angela," he said finally, "do you remember the parable of the Good Shepherd? How he leaves the 99 sheep to search for the one that's lost?" "Yes." "The shepherd doesn't ask the lost sheep's permission. He doesn't wait for the sheep to find its own way back. He goes after it. He brings it back to safety, even if the sheep fights him, even if it doesn't understand. But what if bringing it back means it will suffer in the short term? What if the only way to save it is to let it face consequences that will be painful?" "Then you pray," Father Tom said softly, "that the consequences teach rather than destroy. You trust that God's mercy is greater than our mistakes, and you do what needs to be done even when it breaks your heart." "What if I'm wrong?" My voice cracked. "What if I do this thing and it doesn't save them? What if it just makes everything worse?" "Angela, we are not God. We cannot see the future. We can only do what we believe is right in the moment we're given and trust Him with the outcome." He leaned forward. "But I'll tell you this. Doing nothing when someone you love is in danger, that's not love. That's fear. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone face the consequences of their choices before those consequences become fatal." I left St. James as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Like fire, like a warning. Father Tom's words echoed in my head. Sometimes the greatest act of love is letting someone face the consequences of their choices. I knew what I had to do now. I just needed the courage to do it. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks of sleepless nights and constant anxiety. 3 weeks of jumping every time my phone rang, waiting for the call that would tell me Kyle had been arrested. Or worse. Sarah and Emma stayed with Sarah's parents. She told Kyle she needed space to think about their marriage. He was devastated, she told me. Called her crying, begging her to come home. She almost gave in. "Don't," I told her. "Stay there. Keep Emma safe, just a little longer." "What are you planning, Angela?" "I'm planning to save my son's life." Then, on a Wednesday afternoon in early November, Kyle called. "Hey, Mom?" His voice was subdued. "I hate to ask, but can I borrow the truck tomorrow afternoon, just for a couple of hours?" This was it, the moment I'd been waiting for, planning for, dreading. "Of course, honey. Keys in the visor." "Yeah, thanks, Mom. I know I don't say it enough, but thanks for always being there for me." The words felt like knives. That's what mothers do, Kyle. We're always there for our children. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen, hands shaking. Tomorrow. It would all happen tomorrow. I thought about calling it off, just letting Kyle take the truck one more time. But I knew where that road led. I'd seen it too many times in the ED, mothers weeping over dead sons, wondering when they should have intervened, when they should have been brave enough to stop it. Not my son, I whispered. Not if I can help it. Thursday morning, November 14th, 2024. I woke at 5:30 a.m., though I'd barely slept. My stomach churned with anxiety. At 6, I pulled on my robe and slippers and went out to the truck. The November wind cut through my thin clothes, but I barely felt it. I was numb, moving on autopilot. I opened the driver's door and checked under the dashboard. There it was, another envelope, taped in the same place as before. My hands shook as I peeled it away. It was heavy, thick. I didn't open it, but I knew what was inside. Cash, drugs, evidence. I stood there in my driveway holding that envelope and thought about everything that had led to this moment. Robert's death, Kyle's debts, the lies, the betrayal, the fear, and I thought about Emma, 7 years old with a gap-toothed smile and strawberry shampoo in her hair. Emma, who deserved to grow up with a father, even if that father had to go to prison first to save his life. I took the envelope inside, put it on my kitchen table, stared at it for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and called the Oakville Police Service. I need to report suspected drug trafficking, I said, and my voice was steady, calm, a nurse's voice. My name is Angela Mitchell, and I believe my son is making a drug run this afternoon. An hour later, I sat in a small room at the Oakville Police Service station, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee I couldn't drink. A female officer had taken my initial statement. Constable Jennifer Morrison. She was in her mid-30s with kind eyes that reminded me painfully of Sarah. Mrs. Mitchell, she'd said after I'd explained everything, what you're doing takes tremendous courage. I'm terrified, I'd admitted. But I'm more terrified of what happens if I don't do anything. My granddaughter needs her father, even if that means her father has to go to prison to get help. Now Constable Morrison returned with a man in plain clothes, older Indian descent with sharp, intelligent eyes. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Detective Raj Singh. He specializes in drug trafficking cases. Detective Singh shook my hand and sat across from me. Walk me through everything again, please. Take your time. I did. I told him about finding the plastic bag, the burner phone, the messages, following Kyle to his drops. I showed him the photos on Robert's camera, the ones I'd uploaded to a thumb drive. Singh went through them carefully, making notes. These are excellent, Mrs. Mitchell. Very thorough documentation. License plates, faces, locations, timestamps. You've built a better case than some of our undercover officers. I was a nurse for 40 years. I know how to document things properly. He smiled slightly. So I see. Then his face grew serious. Here's what I need you to understand. If we arrest your son based on your testimony and evidence, the Crown will push for significant jail time. Trafficking charges are serious. He's looking at 8 to 15 years, possibly more, depending on what we find in the vehicle. My hands tightened on the coffee cup. I understand. However, Singh continued, if your son cooperates, if he gives us information about his suppliers, about the distribution network, the Crown attorney will take that into consideration. He could potentially get 3 to 5 years instead. Maybe less with good behavior. And if I do nothing, Singh's expression was grave. Mrs. Mitchell, I've been working drug cases for 20 years. The people your son is involved with, based on these photos and the sophistication of the operation, they don't let people retire. Eventually he'll make a mistake. Or he'll try to leave and they'll make an example of him. Or he'll get caught and without cooperation he'll spend the next 2 decades in prison. So either way he goes to prison. Either way, yes. But this way he has a chance. A real chance at a future. And more importantly, he has a chance to stop before anyone gets hurt. I took a shaky breath. Then let's do it. There's one more thing. Singh pulled out a notepad. You said you found another envelope this morning. Do you still have it? Yes, at my house. We'll need that. It's evidence. He paused. Mrs. Mitchell, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Have you moved or tampered with any evidence? The question hung in the air. I thought about the envelope sitting on my kitchen table. I thought about Kyle's Honda Civic in my driveway. I thought about the decision I'd made in the dark hours before dawn. "No," I said. I photographed its location and left it where it was. The lie came easily, too easily, but it was necessary. Singh nodded, satisfied. "Good. Here's what's going to happen. Based on your intelligence, we'll have units ready to intercept your son when he makes his run this afternoon. We'll search the vehicle. If we find contraband, we'll make the arrest. Then we'll bring him in for questioning and see if he's willing to cooperate." "He'll be scared?" I said softly. "He doesn't handle fear well." "I know, and we'll use that. Not cruelly, Mrs. Mitchell, but we'll make sure he understands that cooperation is his best option." I nodded, unable to speak. After giving my full statement and handing over the thumb drive, I stood to leave. My legs felt weak. "Mrs. Mitchell," Constable Morrison touched my arm gently. "You're doing the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it now, but you are." "Tell that to my son," I whispered, "when he finds out what I've done." I drove home in a daze. It was 9:30 in the morning. Kyle would pick up his truck around noon, which meant I had 2.5 hours. 2.5 hours before I destroyed my relationship with my son to save his life. When I got home, I went straight to the kitchen table where the envelope still sat. I picked it up, felt its weight, thought about everything it represented. Then I walked out to the driveway to where Kyle's Honda Civic sat parked. He'd left it here last week saying his insurance was due for renewal and he didn't want to drive it until that was sorted. It had been sitting in my driveway for 5 days. I pulled out the spare key. Kyle didn't know I had the one he'd given me years ago when Emma was a baby and they needed someone who could get into their car in an emergency. I opened the driver's door, sat in the seat Kyle sat in every day, smelled his cologne, saw the child's car seat in the back where Emma rode. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open the glove compartment, but I did. I put the envelope inside, closed it, got out of the car, locked it. Then I went back inside my house, poured myself a cup of coffee, and sat at the kitchen table to wait. I'd just planted evidence on my son. I'd just ensured that when the police ran his plates and decided to pull him over, as I knew they would, because Detective Singh had mentioned that patrol units would be watching for suspicious vehicles, they would find drugs and money in Kyle's car instead of the truck. The truck was registered to me. I could claim ignorance. The car was registered to Kyle. He couldn't. I'd changed the equation. Made sure that when my son was arrested, it would be ironclad. No way to claim he was just borrowing his mother's vehicle. No way to drag me into it as an accomplice. No way out except cooperation. I sat there in my kitchen drinking cold coffee and waited for the sirens. At 12:15 p.m., Kyle pulled into my driveway. I watched from the window as he got out of a taxi, walked to the truck, checked his phone, and drove away. He didn't even come to the door to say hello. I looked at the clock. 12:16 p.m. Detective Singh had said they'd have units watching, that they'd intercept Kyle during his run. They probably already had patrol cars tracking the truck, but they didn't know about the evidence in Kyle's car. They were planning to stop the truck. I'd changed that plan without telling them. At 12:23 p.m., 7 minutes after Kyle left, I called Detective Singh. "Detective, it's Angela Mitchell. I need to tell you something." "What is it, Mrs. Mitchell?" "The envelope, My voice broke. "I moved it. This morning. I moved it from the truck to my son's Honda Civic, the one parked in my driveway." Silence on the other end. "Then why would you do that?" "Because if you arrested him with drugs in my truck, he might be able to claim he didn't know they were there, that he was just borrowing my vehicle. But his car that's registered to him, that's his vehicle. There's no way he can deny it." More silence. I could hear Singh talking to someone in the background, muffled. Then, "Mrs. Mitchell, you just admitted to tampering with evidence." "I know. I'm sorry. I needed to make sure. I needed to make sure he couldn't talk his way out of this." Another pause. Then Singh's voice, careful. "Mrs. Mitchell, I'm going to pretend we didn't have this conversation. Do you understand? I'm going to pretend you just called to tell me that we should check your son's vehicle as well as the truck." Relief flooded through me. "Thank you. Don't thank me. If this goes to trial, you may be called to testify. And if you're asked under oath if you moved evidence, you'll have to tell the truth." "I understand." "Stay by your phone, Mrs. Mitchell. This is going to happen fast now." He hung up. I sat back down at my kitchen table, poured another cup of coffee, and waited. At 12:39 p.m., 23 minutes after Kyle drove away, I heard the sirens. The siren started as a distant wail and grew louder, closer. I stood at my living room window, coffee cup trembling in my hands, watching the street. Then I saw them. 3 Oakville police cruisers, lights flashing, converging on the grocery store parking lot 2 blocks away. I could just barely see the corner of it from my window, see the flash of red and blue reflecting off the storefront windows. See Kyle's silver Honda Civic surrounded. My legs gave out. I sat down hard on the couch, coffee sloshing over the rim of my cup onto my hand. I barely felt the burn. This was real. This was happening. I just destroyed my son's life to save it. My phone rang. Detective Singh. Mrs. Mitchell, we have him. He's in custody. Was he... My voice came out as a croak. Was he hurt? No. He tried to run when he saw the cruisers, but he was blocked in. He's fine. Shaken, but fine. What did you find? A pause. Mrs. Mitchell, I can't discuss active evidence with you, but I can tell you the arrest was clean. He's being transported to the station now for processing. Can I see him? Not right away. He'll be here for several hours. Booking fingerprinting first appearance. If you want to visit, it won't be until tomorrow at the earliest. His voice softened. Mrs. Mitchell, go pour yourself a real drink. Not coffee. Something stronger. You just did one of the hardest things a parent can do. After he hung up, I sat there on my couch for a long time, staring at nothing. The coffee had gone cold again. My hand where I'd spilled it was starting to blister, but I didn't move to treat it. I'd done it. I'd actually done it. My phone rang again. This time Sarah's name flashed on the screen. Angela. Her voice was high, panicked. Angela, they arrested Kyle. The police just called me. They're saying he had drugs in his car. They're saying he's a dealer. This has to be a mistake. You have to help him. Sarah, where's Emma? She's at my mother's watching TV. Angela, please. You have to do something. You have to... Sarah listened to me very carefully. I kept my voice calm, steady. The nurse voice that had talked down agitated patients in the ED for 40 years. Take a breath. Where are you right now? I'm in my parents' kitchen. Good. That's good. I need you to stay there. Don't go home. Don't go to the police station. Don't talk to anyone who calls unless it's me or a lawyer. Do you understand? Why, Angela? What's going on? Sarah, I need you to trust me. Keep Emma at your parents' house. Stay away from your home with Kyle. Just for now. Can you do that? There was a long silence. Then very quietly, you knew this was going to happen. I closed my eyes. I found out. I tried to help him stop. He wouldn't. Oh my God. Her voice was barely a whisper. Oh my God, Angela, you turned him in. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry, but this was the only way. To destroy our family, to take Emma's father away from her. To save his life. The words burst out of me raw and desperate. Sarah, the people he was working for, they don't let you retire. Eventually, he would have ended up dead or in prison for life. This way he has a chance. If he cooperates, if he gives them information, he could be out in 3 years instead of 15. I heard her sobbing on the other end. I can't do this right now. I know it's hard. But Sarah, you need to protect Emma. You need to protect yourself. There's going to be fallout from this. Media attention. Questions. You need to be somewhere safe with people who can help you. I can't believe you did this, she whispered. Then the line went dead. I sat there holding my phone, feeling like I'd just pushed my own son off a cliff and watched my daughter-in-law jump after him. The next 3 days were a special kind of hell. The arrest made the local news. Local real estate agent arrested in drug trafficking bust. They didn't use Kyle's name at first, not until he was formally charged, but everyone in our neighborhood knew anyway. Small towns are like that. Mrs. Patterson from across the street knocked on my door the afternoon of the arrest. Angela, dear, I saw the police cars. Is everything all right? Family emergency, I said, keeping my voice neutral. But thank you for your concern. She looked at me with sympathy that felt like pity. If there's anything we can do, I'll let you know. After she left, I unplugged my landline and put my cell phone on silent. I couldn't handle the calls, the questions, the carefully concerned voices hiding curiosity. Jennifer, my daughter, called 14 times before I finally answered. Mom, what the hell is going on? I just saw the news about Kyle. They're saying he was dealing drugs. That can't be right. Tell me that's not right. Jennifer, Mom, please. I'm coming up there. I'm leaving Toronto right now. I'll be there in an hour. No. My voice came out sharper than I intended. No, honey. Stay in Toronto. I'm fine. Kyle made some mistakes, bad ones, but he's going to be okay. How can you say that? He's been arrested for drug trafficking. How is that okay? Because he's alive. The words caught in my throat. Because he's alive and he has a chance to fix this before it's too late. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. Then, Mom, did you know what he was doing? Yes. How long? A few weeks. And you didn't tell me you didn't. She stopped. I could hear her breathing hard on the other end. You turned him in. Oh my God. Mom, you turned in your own son. I saved my son's life. By sending him to prison. By stopping him before the people he was working for killed him, or before he killed someone else. My voice broke. Jennifer, you didn't see the messages. You didn't see how deep he was in. This wasn't some one-time mistake. He was part of a distribution network. He was using me, using Robert's truck, using my reputation as a nurse as cover. And he was planning to steal from Sarah's pharmacy to get more drugs. Silence. I had to stop him, I whispered. What else could I do? I don't know, Mom. I don't know. After we hung up, I sat in my dark living room and cried. Real ugly sobs that shook my whole body. I cried for Kyle, for Sarah, for Emma, for Jennifer, for Robert, who wasn't here to tell me if I'd done the right thing. I cried until I had nothing left. On Friday morning, 2 days after the arrest, Kyle had his bail hearing. Detective Singh called to let me know the outcome. The Crown opposed bail, he said. Argued he's a flight risk, has connections to organized crime, and the amount of fentanyl in his possession indicated he was a significant dealer rather than a courier. How much was there, I asked, though part of me didn't want to know. I can't give you specifics, but Mrs. Mitchell enough to charge him with trafficking with intent to distribute. This wasn't personal use. This was dealer quantity. I closed my eyes. Was bail granted? No. He's being held at the Maplehurst Correctional Complex pending trial. He'll be there for a while. Can I see him? You can request a visit, but Mrs. Mitchell? He paused. He knows. About you. About what you did. How? His lawyer told him. It's part of the disclosure. Your statement, your testimony, it's all part of the evidence against him. He knows you were the one who called us. He knows you documented his movements. He knows everything. My hands started shaking again. What did he say? I wasn't there when his lawyer told him, but I was told he didn't take it well. After Singh hung up, I sat at my kitchen table and stared at the phone. Part of me wanted to call the detention center, immediately request a visit, try to explain. The other part was terrified of seeing the hatred in my son's eyes. In the end, I waited 3 more days before I found the courage. The Maplehurst Correctional Complex was an hour's drive from Oakville. I'd never been to a prison before. The building loomed gray and forbidding against the November sky, wrapped in chain-link fence topped with razor wire. I signed in at the visitor's entrance, went through security screening, had my purse searched, walked through a metal detector. The guards were professional, but cold. I was just another visitor to them. Just another family member here to see someone who'd made terrible choices. They brought me to a visiting room divided by thick glass partitions. Phones on either side for communication. No physical contact allowed. I sat in the hard plastic chair and waited. Then they brought him in. Kyle looked like he'd aged 10 years. Orange jumpsuit, handcuffs, hair uncombed, dark circles under his eyes that made him look hollow. When he saw me through the glass, his jaw tightened. He sat down slowly, picked up the phone on his side, stared at me. I picked up my phone. Kyle, you did this. His voice was flat. Dead. You put that stuff in my car. My stomach dropped. Kyle, listen. Don't lie to me, Mom. Not now. The cops told me everything. They said they were planning to intercept me in the truck, but somehow the drugs ended up in my car instead. They said they got an anonymous tip about my vehicle. He leaned forward, eyes hard. But it wasn't anonymous, was it? It was you. I found the envelope in the truck, I said, keeping my voice steady. I moved it to your car. And yes, I called the police. Why? The word came out like a gunshot. Why would you do this to me? Because I love you. Because you're my son. Because I watched you destroy yourself, and I couldn't stand by and let it continue. So you sent me to prison." His laugh was bitter ugly. "That's how you show love, by betraying me. You were already going to prison, Kyle. It was just a matter of time." I leaned forward, making him look at me. "At least this way you have a chance. The police want you to cooperate. They want the people above you. Detective Singh told me if you give them good information, you could be out in 3 years instead of 15. And you thought you had the right to make that decision for me. When you used my truck without my permission to transport drugs, you made me an accessory." My voice hardened. "You risked my freedom, my home, everything your father and I worked for our entire lives. You made that decision without asking me. So yes, I made a decision without asking you. I'm your son." "Exactly." The word echoed in the small room. "You're my son, which is why I couldn't watch you die. Which is why I couldn't stand by while you got deeper and deeper into something that would kill you or lock you away forever. Which is why I did the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. You betrayed me. I saved you." My voice broke. "Kyle, the people you were working for, they don't let people walk away. You know that. Eventually you would have tried to quit or made a mistake or become a liability. And then what? What happens to Emma when her father ends up dead in a ditch somewhere? What happens to Sarah? What happens to our family? Don't you dare talk about Emma." His voice was low, dangerous. "Don't you dare use my daughter to justify what you did. Emma is exactly why I did this." I was crying now, couldn't stop the tears. "Because she needs her father, Kyle. She needs her father alive. And yes, that means her father has to go to prison first. That means her father has to face consequences. But at least she'll still have a father." Kyle slammed the phone down and stood up. "Kyle, wait!" But he was already walking toward the door, shoulders shaking. The guard had to come get him because he was just standing there, back to me, not moving. I sat in that visiting room for a long time after they took him away, holding the phone to my ear, even though the line was dead, staring at the empty chair where my son had been. The next 2 months were the hardest of my life. Kyle refused to see me, refused to take my calls. The detention center staff told me he was refusing a lot of things, participating in programs, talking to his lawyer. He was in a dark place, they said carefully. They were monitoring him. I drove to the detention center every Sunday anyway. Sat in the parking lot for an hour, sometimes 2, never going in. Just sitting there. Just being close to him even if he didn't want me. Sarah filed for divorce. Her lawyer sent the papers to Kyle in prison. She got a restraining order moved with Emma to her parents' house permanently. When I called to check on them, she was civil but cold. "Emma asks about her father," she told me. "I don't know what to tell her." "Tell her the truth. In a way a 7-year-old can understand. Tell her that her daddy made mistakes and he's learning how to do better. Like you did." The accusation in her voice made me flinch. "Sarah." "I have to go, Angela. Emma needs lunch." She hung up. Jennifer came to visit once. We sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen where I'd confronted Kyle, where I'd made the decision that shattered our family and didn't know what to say to each other. "I don't know if you did the right thing, Mom," she finally said. "But I know you did it because you love him." It was the kindest thing anyone had said to me in weeks. Jennifer hugged me before she left. "Call me if you need anything. Anything at all." After she left, I sat alone in my house and felt the weight of what I'd done pressing down on me like a physical thing. Some nights I couldn't sleep. Some nights I couldn't eat. I lost 15 pounds. Stopped going to church because I couldn't face the sympathetic looks, the whispered questions. Father Tom called several times. I didn't answer. Mrs. Patterson left a casserole on my porch with a note, "Thinking of you." I threw it away without trying it. In late December, Detective Singh called with news. "Kyle's cooperating." I almost dropped the phone. "What now?" His lawyer convinced him, showed him the evidence, explained the likely sentence if he went to trial versus if he cooperated. "He's giving us names, addresses, the whole network." "Is he—" I had to stop, collect myself. "Is he safe?" "We've taken precautions. The people he's implicating are being arrested as he identifies them. By the time they find out he's cooperating, they'll be in custody themselves. How much time is he looking at? The Crown initially wanted 15 years. With his cooperation, they're offering 8 years eligible for parole and 3. 8 years. Emma would be 15 when her father got out. A teenager. She'd miss her entire childhood. but she'd still have a father. Mrs. Mitchell, Singh's voice was gentle. This is a good outcome, better than we hoped. And the information Kyle's providing, it's going to shut down a major distribution network. He's helping a lot of people by cooperating, even if he can't see that yet. Has he asked about me? Pause. No, I'm sorry. Christmas 2024 was the loneliest day of my life. Jennifer invited me to Toronto, but I couldn't face it. Couldn't face her boyfriend's family, the questions, the forced cheerfulness while my son sat in a cell. Sarah sent a photo of Emma opening presents. She looked so happy, gap-toothed smile and hair in messy pigtails. The message with it said simply, "Thought you'd want to see." I stared at that photo for an hour. My granddaughter, 7 years old, growing up without her father because of a choice I made. I poured myself a whiskey, Robert's favorite brand, from the bottle in the back of the cupboard I'd been saving for a special occasion that never came. Sat at my kitchen table, looked at the empty chairs where Kyle and Sarah and Emma should have been. "Did I do the right thing, Robert?" I whispered to the silent house. "Tell me I did the right thing." The house didn't answer. I drank the whiskey, poured another. Thought about calling Father Tom. Didn't. By 10 p.m. I was drunk enough to do something stupid. I called the detention center. "I'd like to leave a message for an inmate, Kyle Mitchell." "Messages have to be submitted in writing, ma'am." "Then I'll write one. What do I need to do?" They explained the process. I hung up, pulled out a pen and paper, actual paper because email wasn't allowed, and started writing. "Dear Kyle, I know you hate me. I know you think I betrayed you. Maybe I did. Maybe I'll go to my grave not knowing if I did the right thing. But I know this: you're alive. You're getting help. You have a chance at a future. And that's more than you would have had if I'd done nothing. Your daughter needs you. Not someday. Not when it's convenient. Now. She needs you to be the father she deserves. And you can't be that father if you're dead or in prison for life or so deep in that world that you can't find your way back. I love you. I will always love you. Even if you hate me forever, even if you never speak to me again, I will always be your mother, and I will always love you. Please, Kyle, cooperate. Give them what they need. Come back to us. Come back to Emma. Mom, I sealed it. Put it in an envelope. Addressed it. The next morning I mailed it. I never got a response. Kyle's trial was set for March 2025, but in February his lawyer called me. He's taking a plea deal. 8 years eligible for parole in 3. Sentencing is next week. He wanted me to tell you, he doesn't want you there. The words hit like a physical blow. He said that, yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. I went anyway. I sat in the back of the courtroom wearing my best black dress, the one I'd worn to Robert's funeral, watching as they brought Kyle in. He looked better than he had at Christmas. Still too thin, still too pale, but his eyes were clearer. He didn't look at me, not once during the entire proceeding. The judge accepted his plea. 8 years at minimum security, eligible for parole after 3. Credit for time served. The gavel came down. Kyle's lawyer spoke to him briefly, hand on his shoulder. Kyle nodded. Then they led him away. He still didn't look at me. I sat in that courtroom after everyone else had left. Sat there until the bailiff asked me politely if I needed anything. "No," I said. "I'm fine." It was the biggest lie I'd ever told. 3 months later, in May 2025, I got a letter. Prison mail with Kyle's inmate number in the corner. My hands shook as I opened it. "Mom, I'm not ready to talk to you yet. Maybe I won't be for a long time. But my therapist says I should write this down, even if I don't send it. I'm sending it. I understand why you did what you did. I'm not saying I'm okay with it. But I understand. You were right. About the people I was working for. My lawyer showed me what happened to the last guy who tried to quit. They found him in Lake Ontario. I would have been next. I'm in a program here, learning about addiction, about choices, about consequences. It's hard, really hard, looking at what I've become, what I've done. I used you. I used Dad's memory. I used Sarah. I was willing to destroy everything for money, and because I was too scared to face the truth about what I'd gotten into. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm not sure I can forgive myself, but I want you to know. I'm trying. I'm really trying. I'm going to be a better father to Emma. When I get out, I'm going to be the dad she deserves. The dad you and Dad raised me to be. Tell her I love her. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I'm working on being better. Kyle, I read that letter 10 times. 20. Folded it carefully and put it in the drawer with Robert's things, his watch, his wedding ring, the program from his funeral. Then I called Sarah. He wrote to me, I said when she answered. Kyle, he wrote to me. Silence. Then, what did he say? He said he understands, that he's trying. I took a breath. Sarah, can I see Emma? Angela, please, I know I don't deserve it. I know what I did hurt all of you. But she's my granddaughter, and I miss her so much it hurts to breathe. Long silence. So long I thought she'd hung up. Then, Saturday. You can come Saturday afternoon, for an hour. Thank you. I was crying. Thank you, Sarah. I'm not doing this for you, Angela. I'm doing it for Emma. She asks about you, about her grandma. She doesn't understand why you never visit anymore. I'll explain to her, in a way she can understand. You'd better, because if you hurt her, if you confuse her or upset her, that's it. No more visits. I understand. Saturday afternoon, I drove to Sarah's parents' house in Burlington. My hands were shaking on the steering wheel the entire way. Patricia, Sarah's mother, answered the door. Her face was neutral, carefully blank. Angela, come in. The house was warm, filled with the smell of something baking. I could hear a TV in the background, cartoons. Sarah appeared from the kitchen. She looked tired, older than her 37 years. She's in the living room, Sarah said. I told her you were coming. She's been asking questions. What did you tell her? That you've been busy, that you missed her, that her daddy is away right now, but he loves her very much. Sarah's voice hardened slightly. I didn't tell her the truth, not all of it. She's too young. I would never. I know, just be gentle, please. I walked into the living room. Emma sat on the floor coloring. When she saw me, her face lit up. Grandma? She ran to me, crashed into my legs in a hug that nearly knocked me over. I dropped to my knees and pulled her close, breathing in that little girl smell of crayons and strawberry shampoo and pure innocence. Hi, sweetheart, I whispered. I missed you so much. Where have you been? You never visit anymore, and Daddy's gone too. Mommy says he's away, but she won't tell me where. I pulled back, looked at her. 7 years old, gap-toothed, innocent, deserving of truth, but not all of it. Not yet. Your daddy made some mistakes, honey. Big ones. And now he's at a special place learning how to do better. What kind of mistakes? Grown-up mistakes. The kind that hurt people even when you don't mean to. I brushed her hair back from her face. But he loves you. He loves you so, so much. And he's working very hard to be better so he can come home to you someday. When? I don't know exactly, but not for a while. It takes time to fix big mistakes. Emma thought about this, her face serious. Are you mad at Daddy? The question caught me off guard. No, sweetheart, I'm not mad. Then why don't you visit either? Because... I struggled to find the words. Because sometimes when someone we love makes mistakes, we have to make hard choices to help them. And those choices can hurt. They can make people angry at us, but we do it anyway because we love them. She stared at me with Robert's eyes. That doesn't make sense. I laughed, a sound half choked with tears. I know, baby. I know. Someday it will. But right now, all you need to know is that your daddy loves you, and I love you, and your mommy loves you, and we're all doing our best. Okay. She grabbed my hand. Want to color with me? I'd love to. We spent the next hour coloring. She chattered about school, about her friends, about the piano lessons she was taking. Normal things. Beautiful, mundane 7-year-old things. When it was time to leave, she hugged me tight. Will you come back next Saturday? I looked at Sarah standing in the doorway. She nodded slightly. Yes, sweetheart. I'll come back next Saturday. After Emma went upstairs to wash up for dinner, Sarah gestured for me to follow her to the kitchen. Patricia conveniently found something to do in another room. Coffee? Sarah asked. Please. We sat at her parents' kitchen table. Sarah poured coffee with hands that trembled slightly. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. Something I should have told you before. What is it? Kyle wasn't just dealing drugs. He was... She stopped, collected herself. He had a whole plan. To steal from my pharmacy. He'd been asking me questions for months. About our inventory system, our security protocols, how we track controlled substances. I thought he was just being interested in my work. The coffee cup in my hand went still. Sarah. He was manipulating me, Angela. Getting me to give him information he could use to steal opioids from my pharmacy. If he'd succeeded, if he'd stolen drugs using information I gave him, I would have lost my license. I probably would have gone to prison too. Oh my God. I only found out after he was arrested. His lawyer showed me some of his texts as part of the disclosure. He had contacts people ready to help him break in. He was going to do it the week after he was arrested. She looked at me with tears in her eyes. If you hadn't stopped him, if you hadn't called the police when you did, I would have lost everything. My career, my freedom. Emma would have lost both her parents. I reached across the table and took her hand. I didn't know. About the pharmacy. I suspected, but I didn't know for sure. I hated you, Sarah whispered. For months I hated you. I thought you destroyed our family, but Angela, you saved it. You saved Emma from losing both of us. You saved me from becoming an accomplice to my own husband's crimes. We both cried then, holding hands across the kitchen table, mourning the man Kyle had become, grateful for the chance to save what was left. Thank you, Sarah finally said. I'm sorry it took me so long to say it. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do, because you did what I couldn't do. You loved him enough to let him face consequences, to let him hurt so he could heal. She squeezed my hand. That's real love, Angela. The hard kind. The kind that cost you something. Over the next year, things slowly changed. Kyle's letters became more frequent, more honest. He wrote about the programs he was taking: addiction counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, anger management. About the other inmates, some decent guys who'd made bad choices, some he avoided. About the work he was doing in the prison library, teaching GED classes to younger inmates. He wrote about missing Emma, about the drawings she sent him through Sarah taped to the wall of his cell, about his plans for when he got out, getting clean, finding honest work, being a real father. He didn't write about forgiving me. Not yet. But the anger in his letters faded, replaced by something else. Understanding, maybe. Or at least acceptance. I visited him every month. He saw me now, talk to me through the glass. Our conversations were short, surface level. How are you? I'm fine. How's Emma? She's good. But it was something. It was a start. Sarah let me see Emma every weekend. Saturday mornings became our time. We'd bake cookies, work on jigsaw puzzles, go to the park when the weather was nice. She asked about her father sometimes. I told her the truth in ways an 8-year-old could understand. Your daddy made mistakes, but he's learning. He's getting better. Will he come home? Someday. Not for a while, but someday. Jennifer visited once a month. We'd have dinner, talk about her work, carefully avoid the topic of Kyle until we couldn't anymore. He's doing better, Mom. His letters sound different, healthier. I know. Do you think he'll make it when he gets out? I don't know. The honest answer. But I think he has a chance now. A real chance. And that's all I could give him. In November 2026, 2 years after the arrest, something changed. Kyle called me on a Wednesday evening, not our usual calling time. When I accepted the collect call, his voice sounded different, lighter somehow. Hi, Mom. Kyle, is everything okay? Yeah, actually, I've been doing a lot of thinking, a lot of therapy. They have programs here, really good ones. Help you understand why you made the choices you made. That's good, son. Mom, I want you to know something. He took a breath. I understand why you did it. What you did. I'm not saying I'm okay with it. I'm not saying it doesn't still hurt sometimes. But I understand. Tears sprang to my eyes. Kyle, you saved my life. I know that now. My therapist helped me see it. The people I was working for... His voice dropped. There's a guy in here who used to run with the same crew. He told me what they do to people who try to quit, what they would have done to me. I'm so sorry you had to go through this. I'm not anymore, because I needed it, Mom. I needed to hit bottom. I needed to face what I'd become. And if you'd let me keep going, he stopped. I'd be dead. Or I'd have killed someone. Or I'd be looking at life in prison with no parole. I thought you'd hate me forever. I did, for a long time. He laughed, but it wasn't bitter anymore, just sad. But hate takes a lot of energy, and I was tired. I am tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of blaming everyone else. Tired of being the victim. What changed? I started taking responsibility for my choices, my actions, my life. A pause. And I realized that you did the same thing. You took responsibility for protecting me, for saving me, even though it cost you everything. I was crying now, couldn't stop the tears. Kyle, I'm going to be a better father to Emma. When I get out, I'm going to be the dad she deserves. The dad you and Dad raised me to be before I screwed everything up. You were always a good kid, Kyle. You made bad choices. That doesn't change who you are underneath. Mom, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Dad would have done what you did if he was still alive? I thought about that for a long time. Robert, with his gentle strength, his ability to make the hardest decisions look easy, his simple understanding of right and wrong. Yes, I finally said. He would have done exactly what I did. He would have done anything to protect you, even from yourself. Long pause, then very quietly, I love you, Mom. The words hit me like a wave, the first time he'd said them since the arrest, since I'd destroyed his life to save it. I love you too, son. So much. Tell Emma I love her. Tell her Grandma Angela is the best grandma in the world, and she should listen to everything you say. I will, sweetheart. I'll tell her. Now in January 2027, I see Emma every weekend, Saturday morning to Sunday evening. She's 8 now, doing well in school, taking piano lessons, growing up beautiful and smart and kind. We bake cookies, watch movies, work on jigsaw puzzles. She talks about her friends, about wanting to be a veterinarian when she grows up, about the boy in her class who pulled her hair and how she told him off. She asks about her daddy sometimes. Last weekend, while we were making chocolate chip cookies, her favorite, she looked up at me with flour on her nose and said, Grandma, my teacher says family means we take care of each other no matter what. Is that true? I thought about Kyle in prison, about the choice I'd made that put him there, about Sarah rebuilding her life, about Emma growing up with her father behind bars, about Robert, gone 7 years now, whose wisdom still guided me every day. Yes, sweetheart, that's true, but sometimes taking care of each other means making really hard choices. It means doing something that might make people angry at us because it's the right thing to do. Like when you make me go to bed even when I want to stay up. I smiled through tears. Exactly like that. She nodded, satisfied with this answer, and went back to stirring the cookie dough. I learned something through all of this. Something Robert tried to teach me, but I only truly understood when I had to make the hardest decision of my life. Love isn't just about making people happy. Sometimes love means setting boundaries even when those boundaries hurt. Sometimes love means letting someone face consequences because consequences are the only thing that will save them. I think about that envelope often, the one I found taped under the dashboard, the one I moved to Kyle's glove compartment. People might judge me for that. They might say I betrayed my son, that I should have found another way. Maybe they're right. I'll never know. But I do know this Kyle is alive. He's getting help. He has a chance to rebuild his relationship with his daughter. 1 year from now, when he's eligible for parole, he could be out. He could have a life ahead of him. That wouldn't have happened if I'd done nothing. There's a photo on my mantle from Emma's 7th birthday, right before everything fell apart. Kyle is holding her on his shoulders, both of them laughing at something Sarah said. Every time I look at it, I remember that father, that joy. And I hold on to hope that somewhere inside the man in orange in Maplehurst, that father still exists. 1 year from now, Kyle will have his parole hearing. I'll be there. I'll tell the parole board about the programs he's completed, the remorse he's shown the father he's working to become. I'll advocate for my son the same way I worked to stop him, because that's what family means. Not that we never hurt each other, not that we always agree, not that we let each other destroy themselves out of misplaced loyalty. Family means we love each other enough to make the hard choices. We protect each other from external threats, yes. But sometimes we also have to protect the people we love from themselves. Even when it breaks our hearts. Even when they hate us for it. Even when we lie awake at night wondering if we did the right thing. I still wonder. Probably always will. But when Emma hugs me goodbye on Sunday evenings, when Kyle calls from prison to tell me about the positive changes he's making when I think about Robert and hope I made him proud, I think maybe I did. Maybe love isn't about keeping people happy. Maybe love is about keeping people alive long enough to find their way back to happiness. That's what I tell myself anyway. That's what lets me sleep at night. And that's the lesson I hope Emma learns as she grows up. The one I wish I could have taught Kyle before it was too late. Sometimes the people who love us most are the ones who won't let us fail even when stopping us breaks their hearts. As I put the cookies in the oven and Emma washes her hands, I think about everything that's happened, everything I've learned. Trust your instincts about the people you love. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Address it directly, honestly, and quickly. Don't wait for the problem to solve itself. Don't make excuses for behavior you know is destructive. Set boundaries and enforce them, even with family, especially with family. And if you ever find yourself in my position having to choose between protecting someone from consequences or protecting them from themselves, remember this. Consequences are temporary. Death is permanent. Choose life. Choose the hard conversation. Choose intervention over enabling. Choose love that looks like disappointment now over regret that lasts forever. That's my story. That's what I did. Whether it was right or wrong, I'll let God judge when my time comes. For now, I just keep showing up. For Emma, for Kyle, for the family Robert and I built together. Because at the end of the day, that's all we can do. We show up. We make the best choices we can with the information we have. We love imperfectly, parent imperfectly, forgive imperfectly. And we hope it's enough. The timer dings. Emma runs to the oven. Are they ready, Grandma? I pull out the cookies, golden brown perfect, filling the kitchen with warmth. Yes, sweetheart, they're ready. And for now, in this moment, that's enough.